This is Off Planet Radio. This is Off Planet Radio.
Some of this stems, and we'll bring Duncan up to speed when he comes on. And if it's okay with everyone, I'm just going to go ahead and record, and we'll just kind of make this. And it is okay to record this, Barry, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah, I've got no problems at the moment, yeah.
Okay. So, a lot of what's going on in the background right now is there's this great big gigantic mashup going on in the alternative media. And a lot of it we know the ugly details about, and we don't have to go into a lot of it. But what Barry has been running into is that for a lot of years now, and Barry can fill in the number, Barry has been disclosing information primarily about his earlier childhood events, which were sort of supernatural, but then his work in underground bases at Peacemoor in the UK, which was Barry. What is the background behind Peacemoor?
Yeah, well, you've got to connect all the dots from my childhood to being used as a teenager, and just. It was an ideal opportunity for them to put me into that facility, keep an eye on me, to use me, and to see how far I would actually go regarding working on human guinea pigs. So it's a complicated thing, really. I've tried to explain it over the years.
Right, and for the people who will hear this audio, we have interviews online with Barry. We have a previous one that we've done with him. He's done a number of other interviews as well that give the background to that.
Yeah, it would be much easier if people could actually check all that stuff out rather than go over the
we don't need to go back through that again, no. Okay, so they had a window of opportunity. Maybe what you could do is kind of refresh me on things that happened in your teenage years and how that built into the later activities.
Well, once they've got you as a young child and you go through all the programs and they're preparing you for later life, I don't like to use the term sleeper because that doesn't really come into it. It smacks of spooks and all that agency business, but they prepare the youngsters for later life with various programs they're going to fit you into. So during my teenage years, they were keeping an eye on me, ready for the ideal time in their eyes to actually use me. So there's a lot of paranormal stuff and UFO stuff going on around me all the time. But it wasn't until the mid-70s when they decided to bring me on board, show me a lot of information in return for helping them with information about the UFO community at the time. And that led on to, in 78, being taken to the CLC facility in West London. But this was in preparation for an impending nuclear strike on the UK. They were getting together all the youngsters that had progressed to certain stages. They were going to actually use us for various purposes. Yeah, so we went through a little training program in '78. Then obviously moved on to '79 at Peasmore.
So that kind of gives us a background here.
Yeah, I'm trying not to cover again.
And I understand that. So we're waiting for Duncan right now, and
actually, Randy, I just got word he's jumping on right now.
Okay.
So he should be on, and just look for him nowish.
Okay. No, he'll pop up.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll pause.
I was tied up in traffic for over an hour.
That's not a problem. We're really not running all that late. So what we've been doing the last few minutes is kind of doing intros around the table and formally to introduce Barry King to Duncan O'Finioan voice to voice.
Pleased to meet you, man.
Oh, Mr. King, it's a pleasure, sir.
It's Barry, please.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't knighted by the Queen.
No, not yet.
Old habits die hard, guys. It's just,
I know.
Hi, honey.
Hi, how are ya?
It's been one of those days.
I know.
In the background, doing probably energy work, is our friend Patrice, who is the captain of Information Machine Blogspot. And Patrice has been a major help to me over the last couple of years.
Oh, nice site. I like it.
Yeah. Hi, Duncan. Nice to meet you.
You too.
So, and Patrice, please feel free to kick in. I know you don't usually do on-air voice, but you're more than welcome to be part of this because you have a view of things that sometimes I don't have. You cover the internet, the web, from a side that I don't. You basically are aggregating a lot of information from different sources, and you kind of a lot of times are the person that cheats me up on what other people are doing, because I tend not to be that, I guess, promiscuous with my web browsing. So a lot of what I think we're going to talk about, just to bring things up to speed again, is this shift in alternative media and things hypening, and hypening is actually a good word.
A great word.
I don't know. I think that right now people are becoming more of what they already are. The good are becoming better, and the evil are beginning to really, really show their dark side. And Barry had sent me a press release, which I posted on the website, which basically said, I'm quitting, I'm done, nobody cares. And this was as a result of him continuously bucking up against a resistance wall to what he has been disclosing. And he can address that far better than I am. Some of it has to do with Dr. Steven Greer's work and the fact that Greer is out there right now, and Greer has announced on his website that he has received a $25,000 gift from a source that he did not name. And he is presently, again, seeking people to disclose on UFO sightings and ET activity, and he wants hard proof. I will also note this week that there was the announcement of a major film that has been released about Greer. It looks like whoever's backing Greer right now has put a major amount of grease into upping the ante for him in his presence. So maybe, Barry, what you can do is kind of pick up where you were at the point where you sent that press release out.
Okay, it got to a stage earlier this year when I decided that enough's enough. I think I've done my job. The family, besides myself, has suffered greatly over the years, physically and mentally, for getting all these disclosures out there. It just came to a point and I said, right, no more. I'm getting too old. I'm getting too weak and so tired. I just can't continue anymore. I think I've done my job. Enough's enough. So I called it quits. And to get the point across to the media, what a press release I'll put together, basically saying, yeah, what I've just said, I've done my job, enough's enough, I'm now quitting, I should be left alone, you can all get on with it. But at the same time I put that press release together, I was alerted by someone on, what was it, Alien Disclosure Group here in the UK, Stephen Hannard. He said, have you seen this? And he gave me a link to Steven Greer's blog. And of course I read that. Oh, for God, I actually blew a fuse. I thought, this is just too much. I'm going to change the press release about and include literally being pissed about by Steven Greer and his so-called disclosure group. I thought, enough, yeah, literally I've been stabbed in the back and I was literally fuming. I want to get something done about this. So yeah, I sent the press release out all over the show. And the only, Randy was very kind to actually place the release on his site. Kerry Cassidy received a copy, nothing from her whatsoever, no surprises. I was surprised that Mel Fabregas, though, on Veritas, he's been a gentleman up until now, been supportive, but not a single word from him. A few other places have covered the release, but I can thank Randy for giving me the coverage on that, because hardly anyone else actually bothered to give it any space, any time. So as far as everyone's concerned, I'm still around.
I think what's happened is realignments within the so-called alternative media, and we're seeing, well, I've just gone through probably about a 6-month battle, and a lot of it centered around Project Camelot and Kerry Cassidy, and all the shenanigans that have gone on there. And, quite honestly, we've said our piece. We're not going to go into that real deeply at this point because it's a waste of breath. But noting that, what I have is a press release that I got this week, documentary film based on the pioneering work of Dr. Steven Greer. It says that Dr. Steven Greer, founder of the worldwide disclosure movement and Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is working with Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Armadeep Kaleka and his team at Neverending Light Productions to produce one of the most significant films of our time, and then it goes into it. This film is apparently a big deal. So just on the surface of things, that and the fact that Greer has openly announced, so we're not talking out of class here, that he received a quote, $25,000 donation, we have to assume that somebody's decided to put the juice behind Greer. Greer stood up at the National Press Club several years ago and declared flat out that there were no negative ETs, there were no negative forces from outside of this planetary sphere. Greer has continued to take people out at night, channeling and calling in craft UFOs. And I have at least one person who I'm in contact with that's done this. And the results generally aren't all that spectacular, but Greer uses it as a means to pull people into a group mindset. I would almost call what Greer is doing mind control. I'll stop short of that for now and let the listeners and the people who have been part of this decide. But what Greer has been doing is he's very much been operating to do a collective mind meld in order to either call in UFOs and entities or to give the illusion of doing the same.
Right. Can I jump in there for a second?
Yeah, please.
Being supposedly one of his blooming witnesses, I'll take this back to when I was first approached in the summer of 2000. Now, I'd literally just recovered from a minor stroke, and I received a telephone call saying that Dr. Greer is in Glastonbury and would very much like to see me and discuss my disclosures. Of course, I wasn't in any fit physical state to travel at that time, so a number of telephone conversations were arranged between myself and his staff to get all my documentation, that's that 600 odd pages of A4 stuff, to get that sent to him by special courier to the States. And it was hastily arranged that Miles Johnson would do some filming
This is Off Planet Radio
for his disclosure project. So that was arranged. I think that was a couple of months or so later. Still not in the best of health, but I thought, yeah, I'll go along with this and get this done. So, of course, immediately I get the mindset, right, I'm now one of his bracketed witnesses. I can breathe easy. I've got some support and help at last after disclosing totally off my own back for 6 or 7 years, getting all the hassle and the stress and the attacks and everything else. Great, I'm a disclosure project witness. Whoopee, I've got some support here. So between 2000 and 2005, literally nothing happened whatsoever. Yeah, you had this big fancy press conference in, that was what, 2001? After that, nothing. Not a word came out of his team regarding what Greer was going to do with his witnesses. We're all sat there in the background thinking what may happen. It got to a stage when a number of witnesses contacted me in 2007 saying, look, we're getting nowhere with Greer. Can we form our own little group of disclosure witnesses? And we literally tried to arrange something off our own backs. That fell through, unfortunately, but everyone was getting rather peeved with what Greer wasn't doing. And now he's coming up with this new initiative. He wants new witnesses. He wants this, that, and everything else. What the public don't know about Greer is, and I've been attacked so many times on this, on his press releases, his DVDs, you only see the prime witnesses, the select few who have got good credentials, who can do this and do that. But he has over 500 witnesses, and the public and the media only know of about 100 or so. The vast majority, you don't know their names, what they're witness to or anything whatsoever. I really copped a heck of a lot of flack over the years because I'm one of those hidden witnesses. And we're in an area of black programs where it's nigh impossible to provide the sort of evidence Greer seems to think he can grab off of witnesses. He talks of, in his conference spiel, oh, I have a dozen witnesses who work or have worked within the field of PLFs and stagecraft. But you'll notice he will never ever give any details of who those individuals are. Obviously, up until now, I've included myself, because I've included all the details to him way back in 2000. Now, he's totally ignoring me. It's suppression. He's trying to delete my name and my data from his database, if you like. I really, if it was possible, I would really call him out and say, well, you come forward now. You actually tell us who these other people are. I think they're totally bogus, and I don't think they actually exist, these other people.
Greer is basically publicized as being, quote, the world's foremost expert in ufology. Now, the fact that he has received the notoriety that he has received, the fact that he's apparently receiving substantial funding, I mean, in this particular arena, $25,000 is a lot of money. I mean, I realize it's not in the grand scale of things, but I think we'd like to have $25,000 to move what we'd like to do forward.
Oh, yeah, that would help.
And I guess the question becomes, as you've pointed out, Greer's database has been sanitized many times. He's using subsets of it or whatever. You know, what I would like to see is I would like to see the people who do support Greer, which is probably his grassroots people, his donors, begin to press Greer to make his database public. And we want to see everything you've got, good, bad, or indifferent. And the reason he's probably not going to do that is because this is another level to the PSYOP. To quote an old nemesis of ours, Richard Hoagland, the lie is different at every level. So now it's leveled up. Since 2001, when Greer made his original press club release, and certainly since 2007, which is the last time he did an X conference. No, it was 2010. I can't remember. The game's changed a lot. The internet and the disbursement of information about this particular area of information, and it's, look, here's the other problem, Barry and Duncan and Miranda. UFOs and ETs are all part of a bigger scheme. The story is exactly what Barry has told many times. It's related to the paranormal. It's related to government black ops projects with children that begins in an early age. It goes through life. It's connected to underground bases, and it's connected to projects that can be linked back to not just British or American intelligence agency activities, but globally. So a guy like Greer is useful from the standpoint that he's able to nuance the conversation. He's a redirect back to the UFO contact and disclosure conversation, which other people like Rich Dolan, I think, does a much better job, is separated out from the Black Projects aspect. I suspect that your information has too much detail there in regards to underground bases and projects relating back to Montauk and other such projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I could jump in on that one, and to echo just a little bit of what you have both been saying, I think Greer fits into the same mold as several other people in this alternative community that we talk about a lot. There's seems to be a sanitation crew at work.
Yeah.
You have so many 100% legitimate people out there who have, as you know, Barry said, so many of us have lost family members. We've suffered physically, mentally, psychologically for what we've done over the years. And we're all getting pushed to the wayside because we talk about the nuts, the bolts, the down and dirty side of it. And with Greer and several others, the aspect now seems to be, well, yes, it's all real, but boys and girls, it's all going to bring in this new golden age. And if any whistleblower doesn't conform to that standard of protocol, then we're just literally getting kicked to the curb, under the bus, and tied to the railroad track.
Perfect. You said that perfectly. Yep, exactly right. So what's happening now is, and I'll probably get shot down for saying so, but I try and step back away from this whole business every so often and look through the eyes of your average Joe. It's difficult because everyone expects me to keep wearing the whistleblower hat, and I get really fed up with that. But every so often, step back, look at this whole alternative media, and try and fathom out what the bloody hell is going on. At the moment, you've got so many youngsters coming forwards onto the internet. I regard the internet as a necessary evil. It's more evil than necessary, but it's there. These youngsters, mostly in their 20s and 30s, I don't know what the hell has gone on, but they're all claiming they're subject to mind control. They've suddenly all got recalled memories, which have just suddenly come out of the blue. They're all super soldiers. I hate that bloody term.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
It's a ridiculous term, but it's one that's out there and we're forced to use because there isn't an alternative at the moment. But where are all these youngsters coming from? They're all over the show. They can't prove what they do because they come out with, no, we do all our work in different dimensions. Some are, how can I put it? As I said, you probably all want to shoot me down on this, but you've got a number of people out there. I don't really want to name names that I feel I really should, but there's a few out there, and
I'll
there's
name
more.
them.
Yeah, please do, Duncan.
There are no limits. There are no limits here on what you want to say. This is the free zone.
Well, you've got that's James Rink. I'm very suspicious about that young man, including the little gadget he's put together to help. Okay, great. People associate James Casbolt with my name immediately, simply because when James first came onto the scene in 2006, all his recalled memories were literally dovetailed from all the information I put out many years before. James has got his own unique mind where it all plays out, I'm sure. Now, Aaron McCullum is a strange character. Now, when I first saw Aaron, I thought, yeah, he's a guy who may have been messed with, but the more he came out with such outlandish things, I thought, yeah, hang on, there's something not quite right here. I can't put my finger on it, but I just got alarm bells, and it's alarm bells that I've honed over very many years. And we've got so many new characters that are all coming out. Right, okay, they're all saying the same thing. They've all done this, they've all done that. They're all subject to mind control. It might all well be true, but it just seems we've got this epidemic of youngsters coming onto the scene, and everyone is watching their little YouTube videos and they're getting millions of hits. It's the in thing. It's the new vogue. It's new, the super soldiers of today, the new generation. And I just think, what the bloody hell is going on here?
Well, Barry, I like what you just said about some of the stories being so outlandish. What Miranda and I, and we've been talking about this for almost a year now, is that it seems to us to be the more outlandish the story, the more a certain group of people want to latch onto that and put that out to the public arena, to where people like you and us and a few more, as I said earlier, that have the nuts and bolts of everything, again, we're being pushed to the wayside because what we have to say isn't outlandish enough.
Exactly, yeah. And that's exactly the sort of thing I've been attacked on various forums between 2005 and this year. Sorry, Mr. King, what you're saying is old hat. It's old news. We don't want to hear it. And who wants to know about a few underground bases anyway, and ETs and all this nonsense? They want to hear about jump rooms to Mars, and they want to hear this and that and everything else. And yeah, I can't compete with that. I can only tell you what I've been through, I've experienced. If it's old news and it's not up to scratch, yeah, okay, forget it. Go watch.
And also, my question on that is, okay, maybe our information is, as a lot of people out there say, is old news. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But at the same time, before you people out there want some new, more outlandish news, how about fixing the news that we've already gave you? How about doing something about what we've already talked about?
Oh, they
Nothing's
don't
ever
do
been
that.
done.
No,
not one thing has been done.
No.
Well, and one of the lessons, and I'll roll this back to where we've come so far, is this. All of this media now is being controlled. It is being managed. It is being fed out through certain channels that are high-profile media outlets by very media-savvy managers and producers. And this Super Soldier Conference, which I've not commented on for several reasons, I will. This conference is the product of people who are marketing. This is about marketing buzz. It's about getting airbrushed photos of super soldiers out there and holding a conference and bringing people in, which is the model that they've now used for close to 10 years in doing business on the Internet. The Internet is getting ready to replace television. Television is dying. And anybody that understands the new digital media knows that, certainly here in the U.S., new digital television sets come with YouTube plugins.
This is Our Planet Radio.
Google, which owns YouTube, is preparing to launch a major foray into the world of mass media. What they've been doing is they have been buying media properties now for the last 4 years. The purchase of YouTube, along with their own Google Video, and the fact that they are now opening up channels where high-profile Hollywood types are being given an opportunity to produce content means that they are getting ready to become the new media. What's going on in the background and what's not talked about is that all of the smaller players on the Internet right now are scrambling to get their numbers up because they all want to be there. When the day comes when CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and whatever their equivalents are in the UK just begin to decay away, and suddenly you have the Internet platform as the major media format for people to get their information and to be entertained by. And I think they're going to get their information by being entertained, because the information itself isn't information anymore. It's all being managed. And those of us who have been out there for a while, Duncan, you, Barry, have... this is the new generation. They want the buzz. And what you just said, what are we going to do with the old information? The answer is nothing, because it's not about solving problems. It's not about exposing this stuff and then doing something with the exposure information, or about getting people healed who have been completely fucked over by this system. It's about more buzz, because as long as they keep people buzzed, they keep them in front of their screens and they never do anything.
Yeah, that explains it, yeah. Yeah, they want to be entertained, yeah, and information at any cost, I see. Well, that would explain why over the last year or two I've seen despondency in a number of colleagues within the research community. They've just shrugged their shoulders and gave up, because it's a waste of time. And as I say, I'm getting very old, and I am very, very tired. And I can't compete with all this new stuff that's coming along, all these youngsters coming along who are going to literally take over and be the future entertainment for them. So fine, that's fair enough. I'm more than happy to back out and never to be heard of ever again. I've got no problem with that.
But go ahead, Duncan, please.
I was going to say, we tried. Miranda and I tried. We tried real hard to just walk away.
It's not easy, I know. Every time over the last year or two, I've said on forums, look, can I just leave it? I just want to back away, go and have a nice quiet life somewhere. But colleagues, I don't like to use the words handlers because that smells of spooks and agencies and stuff. So I just use the term associates, have pushed me back in. Your job's not done yet. You're going back into the forums. You're going back into the public arena. You're going to answer questions. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And I've got so tired and weary each and every time. But I've obeyed. I've done so. But now I've even got word from, let's say, the guy who runs certain things over here literally saw me and said, for God's sake, yeah, look at the state of you. You need to pull out, because you ain't going to last much longer if you remain in. So that was another part of pulling up this year. And it is, if it wouldn't have been for that blooming nonsense Greer came up with, coincidentally at the same time I did the press release, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be this quiet little old man who people may recognise by the name from years ago, but he's now sitting somewhere quietly, undisturbed, having his own life.
Well, and you know, too, guys, one of the things that actually dovetails in everything that we've talked about, especially, Randy, where you were talking about the media outlets, there's really almost no place people like Miranda, myself, Barry, Corso, or any of us, or anyone like us, I should say, in this particular group, there's almost nowhere we can go to talk about anything. I mean, straight up front, honestly, we've got you, Randy, and we've got Corso. That's it. That is it. Miranda and I, for a solid year, were turning down anywhere from 3 to 5 interview requests a week. Because we were turning them down because the people who wanted to interview us wanted to turn our stories, our lives, into a cartoon or a video game.
Yeah, I can relate
and
to that.
That's not what any of us are about. I mean, just like with each and every one of us, what we have to say is serious stuff. And it needs to be addressed in the public arena. It needs to be taken to every major government in the world. But if some of these media outlets can't twist it or sensationalize it, like some of these people are having done right now, then they don't want to hear it.
Well, even though I've got no actual personal beef with Kerry Cassidy, I've now come to realise that she has, I've been very naive up until now, I must say that. I've always thought Kerry was kind of straight in putting forward her interviews and doing this and doing that. But over the last few months, I've come to realise that there is some sort of an agenda there with Kerry and Camelot. I just can't understand the way she treats certain, let's bracket, whistleblowers as celebrities. The same names get called up at conferences and talks, you know, the blue-eyed boys, you know the ones.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone else just gets totally forgotten. Now, I had the cheek to put a few things onto her Camelot forum to say, look, I'm, you know, how about a bit of support here, Kerry? I'm having this bit of a tussle with Steven Greer, and I know you don't really see eye to eye with what he says. Not a single bloody word. The press release was sent to her, no response whatsoever. I thought, okay, now if I would have been David Wilcock or someone of equal high standing, I dare say it would have been all over the front page of a bloody blog. But because I'm a tiny little person from the UK, who really, you know, who the hell's he? Not a single word. So I thought, well, okay, Kerry, something else is going on here. You've obviously got a higher agenda than working with this little old man. So again, I'll just call it quits with Camelot 2. So I don't have allegiances as such, but I will work with those who I feel are truthful and supportive and won't stab me in the back at the first opportunity. But I just can't understand where this... Well, Randy's explained it very well, where this alternative bloody media is going. And obviously, I'm on the wrong track. I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm taking the downtown train.
Everything you just said there kind of flows into this whole thing. There's an acceptable level of disagreement within a certain hierarchy of the media on the internet, and there are levels of players. And I think it's become very clear that I don't occupy that upper strata, and I don't want to. Part of why I have the freedom to do what I do and why I piss so many people off is because I'm willing to sit down and have an interview with people I don't agree with, people whose opinions are different than mine, because what I really want is I want information to formulate opinion and thought and not buffer that with my own agenda. My own agenda is not pro-ET, pro-ascension, nor is it bad ETs and invasion of Earth imminent any moment, because the truth is really a little bit more difficult to pull out. Reality itself is kind of stretching at the fabric seams these days in terms of what one's led to believe by consuming the internet the way most people do. And so there's this media monster that sits out there that basically has its own hierarchy. And if you look close enough, they're being allowed to do this, and I say they're being allowed to do it. And in some cases, allowed isn't quite the word. I would say they're being financed and funded. And I think some of the media outlets do not know that they are being funded because it's done in a way that the subtle hooks are in there. They get the choice donations. You know, like Greer's $25,000. Who in the hell just throws $25,000 on a PayPal button? I doubt that happened. And it's very easy to funnel money now. And so a lot of what you see is the encouragement that people get when they go on a certain track. I went on a certain track, and I lost a shitload of listeners again. And I cheesed a lot of people off, and they let me know it. And it's kind of like, okay, you're welcome to disagree, but at the end of the day, it's my show, it's my website, and I do what I want. And if you don't like it, go away. So there's a control of the media, but it's more subtle now. It's because the internet's so big, there's no networks, there's no BBC. So the way they funnel it now is they move the energy, the money. And remember this too. Don't forget, again, Google is a global company. And don't forget that Google not only will control in this future time the media outlets, but it will also control the search engines that funnel people toward them. I know that my website is suppressed. I know there are times when my website does not get the hits it should get because it is 200 pages behind everything else. That's the way that Google contours the internet right now. So you're dealing with mind control, but you're dealing with it now on this mass scale by introducing a new media platform.
Yeah, that all makes sense. As I said, I've been terribly naive about all of this. Getting old, and I get brain farts more often than normal thoughts, so it gets very difficult to think these days. I mean, when I am asked to do an interview, I really have to sort of think hard. I mean, that one last year with Kerry turned into a right bloody disaster. The microphones suddenly didn't work. Oh, that's marvellous. It's been put to me a number of times by a few people that we could see you were a bit pissed off at the beginning. Was it you who actually put the mics out? I said, no. It wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. Although I did have it on my mind once or twice that, it will be a right giggle if there was no sound here, after all, but it was only a passing thought, so I can't really be blamed for that.
If I'm not mistaken, and I've never asked you about this, the location at which that video was shot was owned by a gentleman who died very quickly, immediately.
Yeah, within a month or so, yeah.
Now, I understand the gentleman was sick, but he wasn't in danger of imminent death.
He was perfectly fit and well when we were there, so it is a bit of a bit strange how he did pass away so quickly, because he seemed perfectly okay. I think, let me see, yeah, I've got to be so careful. I don't think I can even say the actual guy's name or the location. I think I'm still bound by secrecy to keep that quiet.
I understand. Actually, it's out there if you...
Oh, is it? Oh, well, that's all right.
It is, yeah.
Oh, that will save me saying it then.
Yes.
Let's just say that certain things that we all talk about can be very detrimental to certain people's health.
This is Our Planet Radio.
And that is something that, Barry was talking about, some of these young kids out there today claiming this and claiming that. I don't think they get that.
I've actually tried watching a whole James Rink interview of about an hour and a half or so, and I got into about 5 or 6 minutes and just had to stop it. This guy, like a number of youngsters, the same as him, where the hell are they? And they sit there totally straight-faced. They're a super soldier. They've gone on this mission and gone on that. I thought, hold on. Let me see. There's certain video games out there that, exactly parallel what you're claiming. And I get to thinking, is it me, because I'm getting so old, I'm probably getting senile. Are these youngsters seeing too much TV, certain programs, certain things, certain films, certain video games, and somehow it's all going into their subconscious, and suddenly they become what they're seeing on these films and in the video games. So, no, that's too stupid an idea. That could never happen.
Actually, that's a brilliant idea, and I'll tell you why. If you, I did an interview Wednesday night with 4 men who were at a meeting that Duncan and Miranda held here close to my location. And these guys are all in their mid-20s, and they grew up in that computer era. They were born in the 1980s, and they grew up with computers. One of the things that they brought out to me was very much the idea that a video game environment literally becomes an environment in which you are a virtual person controlling a virtual environment, and how it bleeds over into perceptual reality. So what you're talking about is not insane at all, Barry. It's actually very incisive thinking, because I had not heard that before put the way they put it to me, and I have children that age. So we're not talking about something that's an exotic theory. I can tell you that from the mouths of people who have grown up in that generation, that's a fact.
Okay, that's dead on. And give me 1 second to run with this, because it's kind of smacking me in the back of the head. I think everybody on this call right now can agree there are what so many of us have termed astral warriors.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's true. That's dead on. But at the same time, the training, the situations, the combat, et cetera, that you deal with, as we say in the never never out there. And like what you said, it comes back, it bleeds over. You will retain certain parts of that knowledge and skill. So when I've questioned some of these young kids about their supposed missions and ops and et cetera, and I'll ask them certain questions about weapons, what would you do in this situation, and they don't have a clue. That tells me there's been no bleed back. There's been no retention of any memory. So I'm left with one or two conclusions. Either full of shit, or the tech is better than I've ever dreamed it could be at this point in time.
You know that technology has been used for a long time to do training. That the military has been using flight simulators for probably about 20 years now. In even virtual simulation, certain muscle memories are retained.
Yes.
So that you would assume a person in a virtual world or an astral world would retain certain skills that would be relative to the things that they claim that they're relating.
Firing an FNL, a semi-automatic, in a virtual world is identical to firing it in this world. And when I ask one of these guys, what's the cycle rate, I have 3 clicks on an FNL, and they're like, huh, what? They have no clue what I'm talking about. So again, there's been no bleed through, no retention, and you're still left with one or two conclusions. As Barry said, they're living that video game world of their own, and then making it into this sensational story for whatever reason. Or I don't know. I'll stop with that. I can go on with that.
I'll just go one step further and say that there's a fine line, because we are living in a time when perceptual reality is becoming a really thin shell. And a lot of what people imagine becomes truth to them. And that's actually what you would call a pathological liar situation, but it may in fact be involuntary to the standpoint that a virtual experience fully engaged actually does become real to the synaptic processes. So on one level, you have people claiming things that and I've used this term before in interviewing, where I've said, I believe that person believes what they said was true. It's a big qualifier. I mean, I go through this a lot when I interview people, because I do try to lock in on people. And I'm pretty good at it, but it's not foolproof. There's times when you have the lingering doubt that somebody has basically fed you a line, and you go, well, I don't know. I mean, we put them on the record, but we put them on the record with a qualifier that there's not really a lot on the ground here. I mean, you guys on this call have collectively been doing this for long enough now that you've established a track record. You've been interviewed. Your information has been consistent. You've presented enough evidence over a long period of time that you have a consistent story coming. That's not true of these new, what we call, and I hate the term whistleblower, but it's the one that we got right now.
Can I add something, Randy?
Sure, please.
About that, I want to support that and agree with it, because one of the biggest problems that we deal with, I think the crux of this matter, is that there's a line between what actually happened, and then that line gets crossed by certain people who decide to aggrandize their situation, exaggerate it, add on to it things that aren't true. And it's such a sticky wicket, because if you think about the general population, like Barry was talking about, taking a step back and looking at the people who we hope to reach someday, we have to maintain integrity and honesty about our situation. We have to be very, very careful to say, I don't remember, I don't know, that wasn't what I was a part of, and limit it to what we do know, so that this extra stuff that isn't true gets added to it, because we're already under severe scrutiny by people who are already looking at our story going, that's crazy, that's insane, that's not true. And then if we have all these people coming out just sort of fabricating things, making things up, well, nobody can prove it right or wrong anyway, so I might as well, just add a little more, or, talk about this or that, then we have a real problem. And that's something that's really distressing to me, because how can anybody know that anything's true if we have a bunch of people just making stuff up?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You've got all these youngsters coming. I think what the problem is our information, our experiences are not glossy enough for the modern era. They need sensationalism, they need gloss, Hollywood-style stuff. We're not actually in that anymore, and so we're not needed, because the thing with these youngsters today is what we should turn around and say is, hold on, sunshine, let's do a test or two. Let's prove or disprove what you're saying. How about a lie detector test? How about this? I've actually mentioned myself over the years, I'll be quite happy to sit any test you want to put before me. No problem whatsoever. Let's do the same with all these youngsters coming forwards. They say they can do this and do that. Well, how about even a few basic psychological tests will prove whether what you're saying is believable or not.
And I think also, I think another thing we have to do is look at the point here. What is the point of what we're trying to do here? We're trying to get the word out about these projects so they can stop, first of all. But if not that, if we can't accomplish that, at least bring awareness to people about it. That's always been our mission. And so we have to look at other people out there. Why are you coming forward? Are you coming forward because of your own ego, because you want to feel special, or you want to be, glossy, shiny, sparkly media darling? Or are you actually trying to make a difference? And that's a question that I ask a lot, and it's very plainly answered in a lot of people, and that tells us a lot too.
Yeah, that's spot on. A lot of people will come out with, and they'll come out with things that Duncan has mentioned over the years. They'll latch on to certain things. A couple of these youngsters today are mentioning my name, James Casboll, Dave Morrow, and a few of the other. They're going back to the old bases stuff. And I think what's in their minds is, if they drop a few names, it makes their story so believable. The current one, and I don't know whether I'm going to get into trouble with this, Anya Briggs.
Go ahead.
Yeah? Part 1 and 2, yeah. Well, again, she's dropping names all over the show. My name's been dropped. Ooh, thanks very much for that. James and a few of the others. And I think that's, if they do this, if they drop a few names that are already out there, people are going, oh, right, oh, great, we've got another one here. And people are just not going to question anymore. I mean, that's where it all falls down. They're not questioning these people. It goes on YouTube. It gets millions of hits. Wow, look, we've got another super soldier here. Brilliant. And it just go on and on and on and on. As I said, I'm too old. I'm too naive. And that's why I really want no part of this, because I know where all this is going to go.
Oh, Terry, let me toss you an example for that. About 6 months ago, I discovered that James Rink was using my name in his YouTube taglines for his personal videos. So when someone would do a search on my name, they would be directed to his videos.
Yeah, it's very.
And I wrote him about it, and I said, please remove Miranda and my name from your videos, and I told him we have nothing in common, okay? And of course, there was some ape shit being slung from one side to the other for a day or two, but he finally did, and he could not understand why I would request that.
Well, see, from my side, as being kind of the media analyst guy, we're dealing with different levels of communication now. And one of those levels of communications is what I call meme building. And the meme building goes into how clever you are at embedding links, how you make very subtle connections with things in the background that are not obvious. And it really comes down to gaming search engines and pulling people in on a presumption of seeing something, because Now, when you go on YouTube, and I did this with my own YouTube channel, which has one video, and I was amazed at the videos that got associated with my video, including some videos I would really prefer weren't there. But that's what this is now. It's all a gigantic reality mashup. And the most credible witness to me right now would be the witness that comes out of the woods with swamp dung all over them, basically having never seen the internet, and told us a story not based on any previous base of information. Because right now, the collective memory is overpowering the individual memory. Now,
dead on, dead accurate.
Now, I will say this. Anya Briggs and James Casbolt have been mentioned to me as being connected to a certain blogger that we've been in kind of a war of words so far over. And this was very credible information. And no, for anybody who wants to ask, I will not release this person's name because they've suffered enough. And quite frankly, they're a person that's constantly at risk. But I've been given that information. It's credible information because basically there's like this parasitic feeding frenzy out there where I think some of these pseudo-soldiers are feeding off of the real ones. And this particular blogger, and he's not alone, there's a number of media group people out there that are basically doing a feeding frenzy right now, trying to pull down the reputations of people who are established and build up the reputations of what I'm calling the pin-up super soldiers.
Yeah, well, Duncan just mentioned that he got in contact with that James Rink. As I said, I only got into about 5 or 6 minutes into one of his videos. Where I stopped was he shows all these fancy little graphics, and he actually portrayed in that video the sketch I made back in the 90s of the trip seat, which he has now turned the trip chair, but it still links back. People will see that image, recall that I put that information out 18 years ago, and so again, exactly what Duncan said. Yeah, he's linking back to known people, so he gets the hits, and he gets the, look, he's got the trip seat, trip chair, whatever. Yeah, this guy's kosher, must be, because look, he's got the information on his video as well. It's blooming ridiculous, and it really peed me off. No reference to where that came from, no, just use it on the video. Oh, look at that, trip chair.
Yeah, we've had several instances over the years of people contacting us and wanting to ask a lot of questions, and then very shortly after, we will see those people in the public talking about, quote, their experiences using the information that they got from us.
Exactly.
That's happened on more than one occasion.
Yeah. The trouble is, all these youngsters, they're so savvy at all this. As I said, I'm naive. I'm still a beginner when it comes to computers and stuff. I'm very, very basic at everything. I get by. But all these youngsters, they're all born at a certain time, so they're all brought up. They can do this, that, and everything else. So they're very, very tech savvy, and they get away with it.
This is Our Planet Radio.
It makes our job harder, too, to try to help people who are genuinely trying to contact us, who've been victims of these projects, who are, have such a tragic history, are extremely, upset, disturbed, have a lot of problems. It's very hard for us because we want to be able to talk to people, but when we've had this happen so many times, we have to be a little bit more careful, and that makes me very angry. It's one thing if you don't want to support our cause. It's one thing if you want to be sort of apathetic about it. But when people do things that actually thwart us from helping people, even the small amount that we can through support and communication, it makes me really angry.
Okay. While we're on this subject, Randy, if you don't mind, can Emma and I take about 3 minutes and just kick this pig and get it done?
There are no boundaries. There are no limits. Do it.
The so-called super soldier summit. God, my stomach turns, my hemorrhoids flare every time I say that word. That's going on at, quite frankly, the same weekend that we're doing our seminar in Sacramento. That affair was at first supposed to be centered with Miranda and I being the two top people there. And certain things took place over about a 2-week period, and, well, Randy, like we told you, we backed out. We didn't back out, we ran out after we saw exactly what everything was going to be. The thing that has a lot of people up in arms that I saw James Rink going around posting about over on White Hat's Forum and a few other places is his accusation was that I tried to stop this event from taking place. I said that I would not do anything if he was there, et cetera, et cetera. Not true. What we said is that we would prefer him not to go on stage and give a talk about deprogramming, because his number one claim to fame is that he has been able to deprogram people like us. Bullshit. That is the most dangerous thing anyone can get involved in. And it's not only dangerous to him, it's dangerous to the individual. And we wanted no part of that. So we backed out. And that's the whole long and the short of our involvement with the so-called hemorrhoid conference that's going on next month.
Yeah. Oh. And of course, Kerry's look on things was totally different, wasn't it? She did a little interview with the guys who were going to do the conference. Yeah, that'd be great to listen to. Not. Ah, dear, it gets better and better.
It does.
The problem with it is that it's all being marketed. If they found a model that worked, they can have their conferences, their UFO conferences, their X conferences, and now I guess Super Soldier Conference, and pull people in for a weekend and charge money and sell bling, whatever. And somebody, a third party, gets to make money off of that. There's marketing involved, there's investors involved. And so clearly somebody thinks there's money in this. I would like to tell you that there's money in doing what we're doing, but there's not. We scrape by, and I'm sort of aggregating Duncan and Miranda in this right now, because I view them as kind of my partners in one sense in what we're really trying to do. And it's on a very small scale. But what we're really trying to do is we want to get truth out, but we don't want to do the marketing thing. We can't run the way the rest of these people run. We can't go and take on investors with promises of paybacks. And we're not going to have people on a stage doing sit-down talks for people so that they can sit there and soak up more information. Because, you know, we've got the information. It's on the table. If you bring another generation of super soldiers out and that this new information comes out and it's flashier and it's glamorized and everything, all it really does is it just burns out the information that's not been dealt with yet. There's a lot of walking wounded out there right now. And Barry, you know this. You've lived in pain for a lot of years. Duncan and Miranda, and I know this, have been the walking wounded. There are other people out there that I know that have paid a real high price for doing what they're doing. Nobody got rich off of this. Nobody got famous off of it. And the answer is that we got the information out. That job's done. Now, what do we do about it? Because now there's a bunch of people out there that need healing. And on a global scale, we don't know how many people there are. It isn't just about people that walked out of projects. It's people that have been traumatized on a lot of other levels. I mean, we saw them, guys, at this conference. You know, the number of people that we had at our conference that were just, you know, people with different levels of trauma. And with stories that, quite frankly, as one of my family members said, you know, listening to the stories, I just stood there and my jaw dropped open because I knew it was true.
Mm-hmm.
But continuing to market this thing, it just becomes another product. It becomes another fantasy lounge for a bunch of people that are never going to do anything except sit around and wank. And you know, I don't think there's time for that anymore.
We're not marketable. We're not glossy enough. We're not profitable enough. So we are old news. It's impossible. Well, that's why I've pulled out. It's impossible to me. I've gave up because I can't see a way forward anyway. I'm getting too old to want to continue, but I can't see a way forward anyway. I can't compete with all the blue-eyed boys at conferences, all this new generation of elite individuals coming forward. As I said, I've done my bit. I've tried also to help. I mean, I had a lot of people contact me during the 90s that were victims of certain programs, and even one or two from the facility I worked at. They managed to contact me, and I put them in touch with some professionals to help them, but there was limitations on what I could do. I haven't got anything to back me up, but I'm just too old these days. As I said, I'm at a standstill. I just really want to turn my back on the whole lot, and I would have done if it hadn't been this blasted Greer.
I look at Greer as being government-funded, controlled opposition.
Well, he's certainly got charisma. I mean, he stands as there's this guy on steroids on stage, and he's spouting this and he's spouting that. And the most threats he receives is when he talks about stagecraft and ARVs and PLFs and all the rest of it. That's where he gets his main amount of threats from. And I thought, well, blimey, there's a big guy like you getting threats and you're worried. There's a little old bloke over here in the UK who's really copped a lot of flack over the years, and I haven't got your backup. He's surrounded by heavies everywhere he goes.
I've always said, you guys, you know, with Wilcock and some other people, you know, whining and crying about a threat coming from a third-party phone call. I said, what I call a threat is when you're in your car and it gets shotgunned down to the ground while you're in it. Now, that I consider a threat.
They've got no idea. Or when you're sitting there in a deserted terraced house in a certain town, and this guy's standing all around you, and one of them's got a 45 to your head. Yeah, that's a sort of a threat. Yeah,
that works. That works.
Yeah, that bloody well does. Yeah.
Or when you're on a plane and the entire plane, they try to take the entire plane down to get one person in it. Yeah. When these guys ever live through something like that, then they can come to us and talk about threats.
Yeah.
Well, there is a bigger agenda, and it's darker, and it's designed right now to basically cut off people's discernment. And the press release for Greer came from an interesting place. It comes from a website called Galactic Heart. Now, I've been on this for months about this whole sphere of the internet that has been pumping out the aliens are going to save us stories. And this particular article that I pulled talks in context with the Greer article about Will Smith, the actor, visiting the White House, and Will Smith's son Jaden, who's a movie star too, speaking to Obama about aliens. Okay, get the picture? This is a Hollywood agenda here. And then it says, this film exposes the greatest story never told. The Earth has been visited by people from other worlds who are not malicious, but in fact concerned for the future of humanity. There's your David Wilcock meme right there. It goes on to say, a cabal of military, industrial, and financial interests have kept this contact and what we have learned from it secret for over 60 years. Well, I would like to remind people that I have no problem with the fact that the Earth has been visited by other beings from other worlds, but it's been going on for maybe tens of thousands of years, and the secret is that the military has been in bed with another cabal, which has to do with the dark ET presence here, but that was all prearranged too. The truth of the matter is, anything that's good out there is not going to set mankind free from itself because it's not ready for it and it's not worthy of it right now.
Spot on.
And these ascension freaks out there that think that they're going to be liberated from ETs are stepping into another trap too. And there's been a lot of talk about using different technologies to simulate an ET invasion. You've got every possible scenario mapped out right now. It's just a question of which one will they decide to pull the switch on. Because if people are gullible enough to buy any one of them, this is just priming the pump for one of them.
Mm. And that goes back to what you and I have talked about on several interviews. Since the travel from point A to point B isn't written in stone. There's, many different side roads that you can take to get from point A to point B. So the real big boys who are really in charge, beyond governments, they have plan A, sub-plan B, sub-plan A, B, C. I mean, it goes on and on and on. They've got so many things they can pull out of their hats to pull this stuff off. It's not even funny.
This is Our Planet Radio.
Yeah, and they're using I do this all the time, and it's why sometimes I just have to shut the damn computers off and walk away. They use so much buzz language. They put the word cabal in there. Why use it too? But this language is inflammatory, and it's designed to basically put people into hypnotic trance. The bottom line on this is they state, no major media or corporation wants to see this information out. We, the people, are going to make this film. Yeah, right, like Thrive, which was financed by the Procter & Gamble heir. Like the appropriation of the Occupy Wall Street groups that was taken over by some pretty high-level people, supposedly George Soros. Because then they can guide it, and then they can use it to a predefined alternative mission. So that it really isn't the people anymore. The people are just like extras on a Hollywood set, which is, I think, the way they view this now. The whole reality is basically like some staged Hollywood set, and they just bring in the extras and march them around on the set for a while and shoot film.
Yeah. Exactly.
Could you guys give me about 5 minutes? I need to go and water the plants and get a drink. 5 minutes?
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So, Barry, what we were kind of discussing over the course of this interview is really just, I think, in a sense, it's funny because Project Camelot put up that Bob Dean and Clifford Stone interview and called it the Twilight of the Old Boys Network.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cynical in a way. I don't know Clifford, but I've talked to Bob, and it isn't about age. What it's really about is that we've moved into another generation of things. Mm-hmm. And cynically, it's kind of a way of saying, we've done it the old style way, which in her case was kind of this guerrilla video thing that was it was brilliant. Doing audio interviews, and what you've done brilliantly in putting a lot of information, very dense information out that's, kind of online as documents. And it feels like that era is over. And it feels like we've transitioned to something very different now, but I don't know what it is exactly. My sense is that we have converging media right now that is making probably all of us redundant in some sense. But The real battle is that we keep the information alive, because there are people out there who still want the information, who need it, and it's never going to go away. It's timeless and it's priceless. It documents a period of 60 years of abuse by governments worldwide against their citizens. And all the cynicism in the world doesn't overcome the fact that to this day we do not have the real disclosure, which is disclosure of how much these government operations globally have screwed not only with the people who are direct victims, but the people who are indirectly victims, which is the general population, in terms of suppressed truths and in terms of suppressed technologies, and that they don't understand the menace that really is in our midst and that hasn't been talked about.
Mm. And of course all the tax dollars that everyone's paying to keep all this going. Oh yeah, we're redundant, okay. I've got no problem with that. I don't mind. But what I do mind is, old information being recycled into these youngsters, the glossy Hollywood-style information era that's approaching. That's my grief. I don't appreciate that too much. If no one wants to know what I've got to say anymore, that's fine by me. I don't care anymore. But don't use any bits of my information as your own, and you repackaged it in a new, glossy, brilliant, flashy way. Just don't bring me into it at all. Forget me by all means, but just don't try and resurrect anything that I've put out there in the last 18, 20 years or so.
Yeah, don't get famous off our hard work. That's
exactly, yeah. I mean, I've never sought fame or fortune. I'm never going to get it anyway. It's cost me a packet just to get that documentation out during the 90s. That personally cost me a heck of a lot of money, but that's one of those things. The information needed to get out there. But I don't agree with the way it's all financially... that's the way they're working today. It's all financial, and I feel that's wrong. You get the same faces parading up and down at conferences, and obviously it costs money to get them there, their lodgings whilst they're up there. But it's the same old faces, and yet they're not being targeted for, you're saying the same old thing yet you did at a conference 5 years ago, go away. But the same faces are being brought forward time and time again. Plus, of course, the internet. No one's going to bother going to conferences anymore when they can sit behind a computer screen and watch a conference online anyway. And it's going to be all these youngsters.
Barry, would there be a possibility of the three of us getting you out to one of our seminars?
Well, if I can state now, I've hinted at it a number of times over a period of time. I'm on the no-fly list at the moment. I cannot get out of this country at the moment. So
see what we can do about that. I was too for a while.
Okay.
We'd love to have you.
You see, I don't think you are redundant. I don't think we are redundant. I think we are being basically tossed to the side right now in favor of a new form of mind control, this media megalith that's forming, and the idea that they can mainstream the horrors of these programs. Because if they can mainstream it, if they can make it glitzy and glamorous, then they've taken all the pain away, and it makes everything go away. And it's not okay. It's not all right what they've done. And they're, in a sense, I think of it like when I met an old man who was a survivor of Auschwitz. And the most compelling thing I ever saw in my life, and I literally stood there, I was 14 years old, and I cried, was when he showed me the marks on his arm from the concentration camp. And he told me his story. And we can't let these stories go away, because these stories have the watermark of time on them. The marketers, the people who are going to profit from this, will be more than happy to wipe all that away in favor of something glitzy, but it doesn't solve the problem. And the problem is that what your story bears and what Duncan and Miranda's stories bear, and truthfully many others out there, and even some people we may not agree with, is an authenticity of being tested in time. Because the conferences and the media outlets need to constantly do what Hollywood does. This is the Hollywood model. They want to continually bring out a new generation and keep it fresh because they need to pull in the young people who are gullible and have disposable money and make an industry out of it. This ain't no frickin' industry. They want disclosure. They need to shut down people like Steven Greer. Steven Greer, in my mind, is simply another layer of Carl Sagan. He is a well-financed, very poised and polished presenter of half-truths that wipe out some other evidence that's not going to be talked about. Sagan did it in his lifetime. It looks to me like Greer is just another layer of the Sagan model.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So I've always been a supporter and a defender of Greer, right up until, just some year or so ago. People would slag him off on forums, and I would stand up and defend him. So, well, I'm a witness, and I've done this, and he's done this, and all the rest of it. But I would, disagree with some of his statements, like all ETs are good and benign. Yes, I totally disagree with that. But I would actually stand up for Greer, and they even sent me an email. Thank you for supporting Dr. Greer on such and such a forum. And I thought, well, okay, it's the least I can do. I'm one of his witnesses. But as I say, times have changed. I've been stabbed in the back, so he can go to Blue Blazers, all I care.
But the information that you gave him, you've open sourced that, right, Barry? That's all out there, right?
That's all out there, 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. And see, that's what we have to keep alive. In some way, we have to keep the information alive. Because at least then we can point back to that and say, why does this not appear in the testimony of Steven Greer, even though he had access to Barry King? Why isn't it part of his finding?
Yeah, what he will come back with, and is said so, not in quite so many words, but is come out with needed cooperation of my claims. Now, which is fair enough, because you're not going to actually get 100% verification of any facility that's as secretive as Peasmore or any of the similar sort of facilities that are dealing with that. If you did, it would make worldwide news. Disclosure would be instantaneous. If I had a little piece of paper literally proving that such a facility existed in this country, I mean, there'd be political shitstorms if it was made known between the UK and the US that there's an NSA facility in Berkshire in the UK doing such and such projects. It'd be such a political fiasco alone. So when he comes out with he's got so many other people working within such areas, well, don't keep it a secret, Dr. Greer. Let's hear who those other individuals are, where they did their work, what projects they were involved in. Drop a few names. I brought it out into the open 18 years ago. If he has 11 or a dozen or whatever more people involved with that particular area, make it known. He'll have disclosure tomorrow.
You know as well as I do that they're perfectly capable of sanitizing anything, of sanitizing a base site. I mean, I know personally of the existence of bases in my backyard that have been sanitized in my lifetime. I know of an Air Force base that was converted into an airport, and I know that tunnel exits and entrances were secreted, blown up, or hidden. I know there are other installations within about a 100-mile radius of me that may be active or they may not at this point. When you get into disclosure in terms of extraterrestrials and extra-dimensionals, you have a whole different set of problems. Because you're trying to find proof in a 3D world for something that exists on another dimensional level. This is why we don't have a lot of proof coming from crash retrievals. And you know that, Barry. You were involved with that.
Yeah.
It's very problematic to provide evidence. And separating out what craft are ours, meaning the military's own craft, and what belongs to something out there is very difficult for anybody to do unless they have very advanced technology and then the ability to process and analyze data. And most of the people working in this particular realm do not have the equipment or the intelligence skills to parse that kind of information. And what Greer's looking for is really kind of a throwdown showdown in terms of the nearly impossible. I have people that send me pictures. I have people that send me massive amounts of testimony and data. They are told that they may go on mic or they may not. Their information will be secured. I have a lot of data that I really can't do much with until the witnesses want to come forward. But even then, the best we have is photographic and anecdotal at this point. That's the best body of evidence that exists right now.
Yeah, the problem with photographs is technology is at such a state today that you can literally fake anything. Photographs, movies. I was asked to provide the set of photographs that I had in my possession during the 90s of Peterborough, the facility, the entrances, and all the bits and pieces that were taken inside by DIS staff, so they were official base stock photographs. And I said, well, and that was in the 90s. I said, well, if I produce these anyway, you'd all say they were fakes. And it's going to be even more that case now, putting these photographs out, because you can just fake anything today. The software that's available, you can produce anything at all. I'm just trying to get back at Dr. Greer with his corroborative evidence from me. Well, I'm asking for the same from him, from his other witnesses. If we've all worked on PLF programs, then there's going to be a certain core of data that we're all going to be familiar with, and we can back up each other, but he will not come forward with the other individuals. He's just calling me out that, no, your information's not good enough, so we're going to keep you to one side. I've got all these modern people with their information.
Well, isn't that the perfect role? I mean, quite frankly, aren't we talking here about somebody who's effectively acting as a gatekeeper?
Exactly.
Isn't that what they've done for 60 years? They have found gatekeepers who can cordon off information from ever being processed and analyzed on a fair basis, because they're the gatekeeper to the information.
This is Our Planet Radio.
Well, this is it. This is why I decided I've had enough. I'm not going to get anywhere. All the youngsters are calling the information, oh, I don't want to know what happened in 1979 or 1980. That's all old rubbish. I want to know what's happening now and tomorrow and all the really exciting things. So you were a security officer at some underground base. Big deal. Okay, it's not sensational enough. So fine, okay. I'll just disappear in the shadows again.
You didn't walk out carrying 8 heads in a duffel bag. That's.
I should have done, but no, I missed that opportunity. You just can't win, and I've given up trying. But it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the attacks, the abuse. It's not worth the nightmares I've had constantly since 1981. It's just not worth it anymore. And as I said, I've just had enough.
I understand your position about that. I will say this. There are honest researchers in every generation. And those are the people who go back and they find the archives that are left behind and ignored and bring out historical truths based on the evidence they have in their time, but backed up by the evidence of people like you who left the breadcrumbs. And that's why I think this conversation is important. We can't fix the media. We can't fix attitudes. The mainstream of humanity is going to follow the giant spotlights right into the Hollywood set every time because they want to be entertained. Most people do not want to be bothered with the moral side of this or the side of it that says there were wrongs committed and there are people out there who have stories that will not come forward because they know no one will believe them and because it's just not worth the pain to do it.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, another side of all this is, of course, the scaremongering that certain people put out, which just keeps the public at a state of panic. The public don't know whether they're coming or going. They don't believe half of what any of us say anyway, and when they're told of certain other things that could be happening, they've got to watch out for a false flag, and this may happen and that may happen. It's stirring up hysteria. It's putting the public's mind in a state of panic, and the whole lot altogether. As I said, I just want no more of it. It's just too much.
Anything else, Duncan and Miranda, you wanna kick in?
I would just say to Barry that I think we both completely understand the situation you're in. I would sincerely ask not to go away. Definitely take a break, as you said, take a step back, take a vacation, take the train downtown and have a couple of pints. But you're too valuable to go away. And I would ask that you don't go completely away.
And you know how to reach us. You've done a very good job of that so far, and we pay attention when we get messages from people. And no, I don't think the battle's over, and no, I don't think you've had your final say, Barry. But I do understand that right now, it's a real discouraging time, and some of it has to do with the fact that it's, 2012, so something's got to happen this year. And, I think maybe by the end of this year, a few more people will be as cynical and crusty as we are.
I hope so.
Not that things aren't happening. There are things happening, and there are things that are going to happen, but it's not going to be what these media savants have posited it to be at all. And unfortunately, the things that people need to pay attention to, they're numb to right now. And instead, they're living off of a fear mode, and they're living off sensationalism, and the human mind and the human body can't live at that level all the time. So, for us, the best thing we can probably do is stay rested, stay fit, and wait for the time when people want to hear what was presented that they completely missed.
Okay, that sounds good, yeah.
I agree with that, and just want to throw my 2 cents in there by saying, I understand how you feel. It's not worth your time to align yourselves with people who are just going to throw mud at you and drag you down, but we are finding a few people here and there who are actually supporting each other, and we definitely support you.
Thank you. I really appreciate everything you guys have said. It's just, as I said, I'm old, coming up to 60 in a few days. I feel 160. And I look back at everything I've been involved in, and I get a bit choked up.
Completely understandable, Barry.
It is. It's completely understandable.
Yeah.
But you're not an old man yet, Barry. Not by a long shot.
Thanks.
And we recognize your importance to all of this, and we're extremely grateful. We've always referred to you as somebody who's been around for a long time, who speaks his mind and who's on the level, and that has helped us a lot, too, because there aren't very many people like you out there who've been doing this for so long.
I appreciate that.
There aren't a lot of people, period. It doesn't take a lot of people. What we've learned, what we found out when we finally got a group of people together was there's actually, I guess, what you would call a tribe or a family out there of people. And they're the few of humanity, but they're the ones that count. And I think that's going to become more important in the next few years as things really do start to rock and roll on the planet.
Here, here.
Mm-hmm.
So yep. I thank you for your service, Barry. I thank you for putting the information out there. It's permanently going to be on my website, and I know there are other people who have devoted themselves as well to preserving the archives. And we'll just trust that time and opportunity are going to allow you to update that information and be a voice for what really is disclosure. And I think with that, maybe we'll just wrap this up. It's been an incredible time sitting and talking to you guys about this. I think anybody that listens to it's going to see there's a lot to be learned from listening to voices that have been out there for a while. So we'll close it out. This is Off Planet Radio. Barry King has joined Duncan O'Finioan and Miranda Kelly and myself with our very good friend Patrice from Information.